Hi there, and welcome to the Composer's Toolkit. In this video we will be talking about registers. So what are the registers? The registers are these buttons on the side of the instrument, both on the right side and on the left side of the instrument. As mentioned in the first video of the series, the registers change the timbre and the sound of a pitch. This happens by opening a set of reeds or closing a set of reeds. All in all, we have 4 different sets of reeds. Each of the sets of registers is marked by these signs. So we have one dot in the middle, also known as 8-foot register, and it's called also incasotto, while it has a more round and velvety sound. Then we have another dot a little bit outside of the middle, called out of casotto, and it's a little bit more pointy as a sound. We will hear that soon. Then we have a 16-foot register, which is the dot below. And this is also a transposing register because it sounds an octave lower than the key I'm pressing. I will give an example. And then we have the 4-foot register, also known as the piccolo, and it's this dot above. And it's also a transposing register, which brings the real pitch 1 octave higher. So let's go to an example. I'll play an A. So A with an 8-foot incasotto register. Now this is an 8-foot outside of a casotto, so outside of the middle, not in casotto. You can hear the difference. Let's play both of these notes one after the other. So I'll hold the note and change it. So that you can hear the difference between in casotto, the rounder sound, and a little bit more pointy sound of the out of casotto 8-foot register. Now, I'm pressing the same A, if you think about it, in the first octave. That's the sounding pitch, right? If I were to play the same key on a 16-foot register, the resulting pitch is actually 1 octave lower. So this is A below the middle C on an 8-foot incasotto, and this is in the first octave on the 16-foot register. The real pitch is the same, the timbre is slightly different. If I were to play, this is the 8-foot, A below the middle C, I'm changing it to the 16-foot. What you need to remember is to think in real pitches. But if you write down the 16-foot register, remember that the sounding note will be an octave lower. So if, for example, you want a middle C, and you write a middle C with a 16-foot register, the accordionist, in order to obtain that real pitch of a middle C, will be playing it 1 octave higher. That way we obtain the real pitch. It's just for you to know, you don't have to write this, the accordion knows that, trust your accordionists. And then we have the 4-foot register, also known as the piccolo. Why is it also known like that? Because in the past, on older accordions, the registers were thought of as imitating different instruments. So you would have an organ, you would have a flute, you would have a violin, and we will talk about these in a moment. So about the 4-foot register, if I'm going back to the A in the first octave, again with the 8-foot incasotto in the middle, dot in the middle, I put the 4-foot register and play the same key, it sounds 1 octave higher. Again, this is something for you to remember. You don't have to write it down. Just know that in order to obtain that high pitch with this register, the accordionist will be playing 1 octave lower. Again, just for your information. You don't have to write that down. Now, on the right hand side we have, normally you would have 15 registers, which are the 4 single registers, so the 8-foot in Casotto, 8-foot outside of Casotto, the 4-foot and the 16-foot registers, and all of the different combinations which can be done with 2, 3, and in the end all 4 of these dots together, all 4 sets of reeds open and sounding together. It's also known as tutti register. Now let's go and combine the 2 8-foot registers. So we have single, and then I put the double 8-foot. It changes the sound slightly, right? If I were to add to this double 8-foot register 16-foot, it's a lower sound, and if I were to put all 4 of them, you might not hear all of them at the same time, but you hear a different color, and that's what you need to think about. Many times I've worked with composers who thought they needed to notate all of the notes because of the register they used, so they've put dots in different octaves. You don't need to do that. So just put the register of the sound you want, and that will make the accordionist understand where they need to play the real pitch on the keyboard. So in order for you to kind of hear all of these coming together, I will start by holding the A note and adding the different, opening the different sets of reeds. Now I will go back by closing and taking out some of these. So you will have all sorts of different combinations which you can use in order to have a softer sound. If you want, for example, something very piano or pianissimo, you might use the 16-foot register. Because if I were to put the tutti, automatically it sounds louder. And it's also very useful to know how to use the registers depending on the situation you are in and depending on the level of dynamics that you really want to achieve. So if you want to have fortissimo, you might want to use a combination of 2, 3, or even all 4 of the sets of reeds. So you might want to use a tutti register, or you might want to use a double 8 plus 4, or you might want to use 16-foot plus 8-foot, and so on. Then, for example, you might have this combination of 16-foot plus 4-foot without the 8-foot in the middle, and that was very often referred to as the organ register. This is pretty much how the registers work. Now, I mentioned in the previous video that we also have these chin registers. I'll come a little bit closer so you can see these. These are all very useful, especially when you are playing a fast passage and you don't have the time to actually find or change, and you don't want to interrupt the flow of the music. So that way I'm changing with my chin. These are basically doubles of 5 of the registers I have here. Maybe 5 of the more used ones, so that the accordionist doesn't have to kind of lose time searching for the right register and interrupting the music, or doesn't want to make a mistake while choosing the register. That's something that accordionists know very well. It happens, especially if you don't have the time to do that, to change the register. And yeah, this is pretty much about the right hand. You can also hold a chord, for example, and change. The different sounds and the different timbres of that set chord or of that note. Now, in the left hand, we have different registers. Normally you would have 5, some have more, some have less. It depends on the instrument. In my case I have 7, but there are actually 6 because 2 of them are doubled. So that, you know, if I'm playing somewhere here, I have a bigger chance of catching the right register here instead of here. But that's a small detail which you don't have to concern yourself with. So what you would have on most accordions are the 2 sets of reeds. One is the 8-foot and one is the 4-foot. And you would write it in this symbol, so not more 2 lines inside a circle, it's 1 line inside of a circle. And if you were to play on the 8-foot, the lower dot, so it's also called the unisono, right? It resembles a little bit of a casotto in the right hand. And then you have the 4-foot register. When I'm clicking it, it just like in the right hand, it's a transpository register, and it brings the pitch 1 octave higher as written. So if I were to play the higher note, the C sharp, with a 8-foot register, dot below, with a 4-foot, it's, which brings the range of the keyboard higher by an octave. And then there's another option, which is combining both of them, the so-called tutti. So if I were to change, for example, if I hold this, and I were to, it's a different sound, but I just opened up a different set of reeds, and then I have both of them. Again, you don't have to write out the pitches, the accordionist knows, you just put the register you want, and it's up to the accordionist to perform it. This was for the free bass. For the standard bass, these registers also change the sound, both of the basses and of the chords. Now this is the tutti. If I were to put the one that we had, the 8-foot, and in the left hand standard bass, you would notate it with this kind of symbols, then I would have the bass changes and also the chorus change. When I put the piccolo, the 4-foot, this also changes the sound a bit. the other registers also change the sound a little bit between the louder, the softer, the higher, the lower, and so on. And all of this makes so that on the accordion you have these ranges of the two keyboards. This is for the right hand, and this is for the left hand. On the piano accordion, because of the size of the keys, we have this range. And on the button accordion, because there are more buttons, the buttons occupy less space, so more buttons go into one keyboard. The range is slightly bigger in the right hand, but remains the same in the left hand. Now, on some accordions, you will also find the 2-foot register in the left hand on the free bass, which basically brings the pitch 2 octaves higher. Not all instruments have that, so you need to ask your accordionist what kind of instrument he or she works with, but they will find a way. It's just for you to know that some of the instruments have the option of having these higher pitches, but not all of them. Thank you very much for watching this video of a Composer's Toolkit. I hope it was useful, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in another video of a series.